the run and gun approach can be real effective, because my opinion in the pre-spawn is you'll find these big schools of fish moving back in a creek, but I would say majority of the time they might be good fish, but you're getting to like an average size fish. It might be the good average in the lake, but it'll be, 2.5, 3 pounders maybe on a lot of lakes, and that's what those schools are. But those really big females, let's say 4 to 10 pounders, depending on what lake you're on, in the immediate pre-spawn, they like isolated structure. And what I mean by isolated, or I guess isolated cover's a better term. So what I mean by that is one dock or one laydown or a stump, something like that can be a real likely area for this run and gun technique. And when I'm doing this in the pre-spawn, a lot of times in practice, I kind of make mental notes when I'm practicing of these spots, but I don't cast at them, because a lot of these are one fish type areas. And if you throw to that one dock, well, you just caught that fish. And now yes, another one might pull onto it, but you just run and gun likely high percentage areas. And yes, they might not all work, but you only need 5 to work a day most of the time. So when that run and gun scenario, I'll look for some examples of kind of common run and gun covers that time of year would be, let's say, a dock on a point, a little flat point going to a pocket. Well, it's really very likely that one of those big females is sitting on that dock getting ready to spawn in that pocket. So I'll look for an isolated dock on that bank, a dock by itself, a laydown by itself. It's usually something by itself. Or let's say you go into a flat and there's a bunch of stumps. Well, those are all, even though it might be a bunch of stumps in the back of a creek, it's isolated cover and you can run and gun. And yeah, you might not crank the boat up and run to a different creek, but it might be a stump here, go 100 yards a stump, or a laydown, something like that. Isolated targets that you can see is usually it. And that's probably, in the pre-spawn, you're not gonna go catch 50 fish doing this usually, but that might be where those really big females, that's likely targets that you're wanting to run and gun. So that's mostly pre-spawn fishing, and that's your 2 options. You wait for fish to come to you because they are migrating, or you kind of run around and hit these likely targets. And a lot of times you can mix both. I know of a lot of tournaments I've done well in the pre-spawn. You've got that staging point where they're coming to, and you might spend the first 3 to 4 hours of the tournament there, cull up to kind of your plateau weight, and then you can run these isolated targets to try to catch you a couple kicker fish. So you can mix both, and that's one of those prime situations of both are probably working on the lake at the same time. So that's one of my favorite times to kind of mix the 2 of them. So after the pre-spawn, we are talking the spawn. So actually, those fish there in that picture are a prime example. That was a pre-spawn picture, but that was a run and gun method. Me and Shane LaHue caught those fish on a Yo-Zuri crankbait on isolated rock. And that was, we were hitting isolated little key stretches of rock, catching one at a time right before the spawn. So that was a perfect example of one of those pre-spawn kind of isolated target situations, and that was on Lake Murray, actually. So, but we're gonna move on. So in the spawn situation, spawn is a little weird for this concept, because a lot of times they're spawning, so you're kind of running, gunning, I guess, because you're catching each fish off bed off one specific place. It's not like 2 fish are gonna be spawning in one area. But I would say there are some situations where you are talking a methodical spawn approach. And I guess one of the most common that I'm used to is a muddy water situation. So, I mean, in the spawn, if it's muddy, the fish they still got to spawn. They're spawning a lot shallower generally, which people don't really realize. I've seen fish spawn nearly with their backs out the water in muddy water because they have to have light on their eggs. So they're still going to spawn in this muddy water, but you can't see them. So with that being said, you have to be a lot more methodical. If you go in that situation, I like to go to an area where there should be a lot of fish spawning, which is a little tricky on a lot of reservoir style lakes, because anybody that's fished like a lake like Hartwell, for example, a fish spawns pretty much everywhere. I mean, there could be one on a point, there could be one on a bank, there could be one in the back of a pocket, on a shoal. The bottom composition is right for spawning everywhere. So that's more of a run and gun situation. But with that being said, if a lake lays out like that, but it's still dirty, you've got to be methodical.
And the information Bass University provides isn't your basic run-of-the-mill fishing video. This is specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly.